What actually makes a developer hard to replace today? So with all the recent layoffs like Oracle, it feels like no one is really safe anymore. Doesn't matter if you are senior, highly paid, or even top performer, people are getting cut across the board. So just wondering from your experience, what skills or qualities actually make a developer hard to replace? And is it like domain knowledge? Is it owning critical systems, good communication, or something else? Well, what we've seen, given the advent of AI in programming, as a developer, you mainly have two paths to make yourself irreplaceable, and we will talk about what irreplaceable actually mean or safe, right? But number one is the AI engineer, where you fully embrace the future and you fully embrace AI. And the second one is kind of the senior engineer, who is the human insurance against AI, right? Now, the AI engineer part is basically diversifying your skills and learning new skills, which are like, integrating LLMs, working with models, learning things like RAG and context engineering and agentic workflows. But this path has its drawbacks. Right. Bogdan, what do you think about the AI engineer?
Well, the number one thing is, in terms of the job offers you'll get as soon as you start going in that angle, it will mostly be startups. And the problem with startups is that, first, the amount of hours you're gonna put is crazy. That's what we've seen from the ground, from students we have there, in my own experience. Number two, you might be looking for a job again in 6 months, so the uncertainty is higher, because if they don't raise the next round, or maybe the product wasn't even useful, they're still in that product to market fit. And so yes, you are on the latest thing. Your best hope is probably to go to the startups once or twice or 3 times, have like 9 months here, 6 months there, and then maybe go for a bigger company, like a big tech, like an Anthropic or an OpenAI or maybe Google, that are looking for somebody with AI. The problem is, when you go in that space, you already need to be a lot more certified, like either a master in mathematics or engineering, and it usually has to be even a master, or a PhD. That's the people you compete with. So coming from traditional software development, there's gonna be a lot to catch up, and there will be a lot of uncertainty. Except for model distributors, which are Anthropic and OpenAI, there's very few companies that were able to launch profitable use cases involving LLMs.
And that's the thing, it's a bit of a gamble, right? Because even the startups themselves, like you said, AI startups, 1 week they raise money and they are hiring, and then the next week they don't have the budget and they are shutting down. So if you're interviewing for these companies, and of course if you add these terms, if you learn these skills and you add them to your resume, you're going to be attracting all these startups, right, to interview for them, and the process will be quite chaotic. And you might end up, like Bogdan said, working 3 months here, 6 months there, which, depending at what stage you are in your career, might even mean a career suicide.
I would say it does have one upside, which is, if you do it well, you might get a very high salary. So because they need people fast, they usually throw in like 20% or 30% on top of your market rate, whatever market you are. But again, it will come with expectations. Like, the expectation is that we're doing AI, and AI is the best thing ever, so you better be fast. They have this mindset of AI replacing software, so it's going to be very hard for you to have any kind of negotiation in terms of estimate and everyday kind of work politics. Like, these are usually young founders. They read that AI is the best thing ever. They watch all the Y Combinator videos, and they think we should be churning out code every single day, 24 hours around the clock.
And that can be problematic. You might be expected to even work on Saturdays, maybe Sundays, or pick up the phone at 10 a.m. when your CEO is going to call you. And also, you said something, Bogdan, like they have this idea of AI is going to do everything, meaning it will be hard for them to hire more people, so you have a team around you, right? You might find yourself pitching, doing a very hard pitch to get more people to help you in the team. So everything's going to be on you, or hey, just create more agents, work with agents, not with people. And now there is the other path, which is the senior engineer, right? Which this developer is kind of the human insurance against AI. And this is very attractive to corporates who are also confused, also don't know exactly, they heard about AI, they want to implement it, they think, if they don't do it, they're going to be out of business. But again, they are afraid because they have like running software in production at scale. So they need people who actually can use AI, but in case AI makes a mistake, which they know it makes, they can be kind of the insurers. They can go in and fix this massive amount of AI code slop. Right, Bogdan?
Yeah, exactly. So corporates do have this FOMO of, we need to use AI. Nobody knows how, but we need AI. So if you position your traditional skills, which is what they actually need in everyday work, with, wrapped with the AI sticker, then you have a lot of chances. The other thing, as you mentioned, it's you need deep expertise, because a lot of people in those companies are pushing code with AI. You're getting those 20K lines of pull requests that you need to review, so you won't be able to survive if you're not very solid technically. It's just because the frequency of everything changed. So you're going to get to review a lot more code. You're going to get to make faster decisions. So you need to have solid fundamentals and a very good understanding of the tooling.
Yeah, so one example of this, it's one of our students, right? She got hired as a front-end engineer, and I remember she had to go very deeply into CSS because the company was looking specifically to do things that AI cannot, right?
Exactly. If they're really serious and if they have a good culture and they realize if we do our front end with AI, it's going to look like anyone else. It doesn't match our brand. We really need a person that will actually consciously make decisions here, not just looking for the jackpot in the cloud code prompt terminal. So then they will require you to do, usually they require you to do an interview that's live coding. They require you to do system design, and they value the fact that you use cloud code or any IDE that uses AI like Zed or Cursor. That's great, but they will interview you without AI.
And to close this up, Bogdan, I remember when we were looking at this question, answering this question, what actually makes a developer hard to replace today? And we said, hey, you know what? There is no hard to replace. Everybody is replaceable. And the right question to ask, if you're a software engineer right now, what makes a developer easy to hire today? Right? Because security cannot come from the company you're working for. Companies are very unstable these days, but it does come from you being able to go to the market and get another job.
Exactly. So I think in the Reddit post, the person mentioned deep expertise or owning a system, and that's a fallacy that people make. They think if I'm an expert in this system that's critical in the company, they won't lay me off. But the reality is that nowadays, first of all, a lot of layoffs are structural. So that means they shut down entire products, entire software units. Like Oracle laid off 30,000 people. Has nothing to do with those people's performance. It's just a business unit decision. Some VP looked at it and be like, okay, this is not worth it. So owning a system, it's also like you're hoarding knowledge. You're working in a way against the company, in a way, right? Because you're like trying to hoard knowledge. They try to commoditize you. And instead, I would go the other way around. And I'll be like, okay, I'm going to be the easiest person to hire and the easiest person to work with. And that means if you look at your technical skills, you need to, even if you are a specialist and you need specialization, as we mentioned in point B, right? The senior engineer, you do need full stack skills because they want you to ship features alone by yourself end to end. They don't want anyone to hold your hand. That's number one. And number two, you do need to sell yourself well.
And by the way, folks, if you're a JavaScript engineer and you're thinking, hey, how can I get to senior? What are those gaps that I need to fill? The best way to start is check the link below. Bogdan and I put together a 10-minute technical assessment. It will show you exactly what your gaps are and what's the best roadmap for you to get to that senior level. And if you want Bogdan and I to make a video about this AI engineer path, okay, and what exactly would someone, a full stack engineer or a JavaScript engineer, have to learn to transition towards an AI engineer, just let us know in the comments and we will add it to our to-do list. Before we go, a lot of the talk about how to make yourself, market-proof and irreplaceable in this AI age as a software engineer focuses on two things, right? Number one, it's soft skills. So they say, hey, because AI can code and now it's all about soft skills. And the other thing, it's about becoming a product engineer or kind of a product manager for the AI, where you're kind of guiding the AI and the AI does all the technical work and coding and all that. What's your take on this?
Well, number one, about the soft skills, people usually pay into this. Engineers, we usually have this insecurity about soft skills and they're not great communicators. It has to do with a lot of stereotypes around the position itself. But nobody will hire you based on your communication skills, because communicating technical decisions, it's a hard skill. Talking about microservices versus event-driven, going deep, or being able to synthesize that in front of people or selling it in an interview, it's not a soft skill. It doesn't matter if they like you. Like, it's great to be likable, but that's not going to get you the senior engineer job. That it might get you like a sales job, maybe a marketing entry-level job, but you need hard skills. That's what they pay. They pay for expertise. They pay for the ability to prevent problems, right? Not just talk about it and chat. I think that comes more from the corporate world, where people are overly focused on politics, because it's all about like, who talks well about you, and they get lost in the process. It's all about selling your work to the company. But at the end of the day, your employability, your ability to find a new job really fast always comes down to what can you get done? What can you build?
And regarding the product engineer idea where a developer really doesn't do too much hands-on coding at all and is just coordinating AI.
Well, the fallacy there is that in the same way, I know people that are saying I'm not writing any line of code because I'm a developer. I know other people that were doing product, friends of mine that are product managers, that are not writing any tickets by hand. They're just using AI. They're feeding their analytics into AI. They're feeding the Jira tickets, and then they get the roadmap. So if AI can do the coding, like if you're okay with the quality of AI coding and you think that's great, then you're also okay with the quality of writing tickets. So I guess at some point you just have one person with a product agent that writes the specification and a developer agent that implements it, and you're gonna have this recursive ball of mud, and whatever comes out of there, we will see. What I see a lot, it's people claiming that AI can do this and that, but I haven't seen yet a single product built fully by AI that takes the market from a product built by
human. And that's a fact, because nobody talks about business value. Everybody talks about lines of code and Jira tickets, and look at pages and pages of AI slop that's being generated, right? But nobody talks about value. And the paradox is that to create value in a marketplace, to make something, you need to make things that haven't been done before, right? And by definition, LLMs will always look into their training space, right? Whatever they've been trained on, whether, they can of course interpolate and they can find things that they haven't been trained on, but it's always within this kind of training space they have. And usually value as commercial value, right? It's outside of that data that the LLM has been trained on, right? I guess that's one of the biggest fallacies behind that. And we will see the result in the next coming months for sure.
Exactly. And what happened with AI is that it's so easy to generate kind of those generic interfaces. Like if you need to write like a CRUD endpoint, you need a bunch of forms, you need a React component. That's pretty easy to get done with AI. What happened is the boundary moved. And all of a sudden, not only we have to go deeper as engineers, so you got to go deeper into actually the fundamentals and understand things in depth so you can redesign, paradigms in your company, like at data level, at algorithm level, you need to understand them. It's not enough anymore to just some component there and that's it, we finished, we build some React component. But at the same time, it's also a blessing, right? Because now the products that a lot of people are building, they will be built at the margin of what AI can do easily. Like you're not going to sell the fifth copy of another e-commerce store. It's going to be something new. So that's why specialization matters more than ever, because anything that's somehow generic, like it can be more or less done with AI. If it's generic and it's not business critical or mission critical, it's going to be more or less done by AI, or there's going to be a person responsible for 3 people work because they use it.
Maybe it shouldn't be done in the first place. Well, Bogdan, thank you so much, and we will see you folks in the next one.